What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Main Gains podcast, episode number 9, I believe. And again, I have another Beantown teammate and old college rival, Jenna. I should have asked again. Is it Clukey? Say your last name.
Clukey.
I knew it, and I went with I knew it. Okay.
It's okay. Not the only one.
So, Jenna, why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, I'm Jenna. Like Jenny mentioned, college rivals, although I think we only faced off against each other like once. I got in at the end of a game. It was actually, though, fun fact, my first ever varsity minutes my first year at Bowdoin were against UNE, so that was fun. Um but yeah, I went to Bowdoin, just graduated in May, so this is my first stint with Beantown. Now it's been like 7, 8 months. It's crazy how fast time flies. So I've been playing rugby 4 years, and just happy to be continuing to play at this level and love having Jenny as my teammate. It's a lot of fun.
Jenna, you don't have to lie to the people. I know it can be a pain.
No, it's not a lie. You know that 10, 12, or 12, 13 center backs connection we have. It's great.
J squared.
Yeah.
Um, Jenna, you're originally from Maine, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to go to Bowdoin?
Yeah, great question. So, growing up in Maine, I think we have a very different like perspective of what like Bates Bowdoin Colby is. It's sort of like the top um college goals, whereas like I talk to my friends who are from California or different parts of the country, and like their peers have no idea like what Bowdoin is. So you say that and people are like, what's that? And they sort of have to explain. But in Maine, those three schools sort of need no explanation. So I think growing up, it was always my goal to like be a good enough student, a good enough athlete, in the sense of just being like well rounded. It wasn't like my sole focus of why I did things, but I just wanted to like strive to like get into a college at that level. And then my first like freshman year of high school, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to school far away. Like I'm gonna get out of Maine. And then as I got older, kind of home became like more important to me. And I was like, why would I leave Maine? I love Maine if I have the opportunity. To go to Bowdoin. So I kind of had my heart set on it. I had some like people I knew, older people like in their 40s and 50s, who had gone in my town. I talked to them about it and just seemed like a really good fit. So I applied, early decision, and I ended up getting deferred, and that was sort of like a soul crushing like experience, because I was like, oh no, what, like I didn't really want to go anywhere else. So I had to readjust. I just applied to like a bunch of places for like the regular admission, and then I ended up luckily getting in during the regular decision time, so it all ended up working out. But I think it was just a good uh, learning experience that, even if on paper, um, there are some people who I thought, had a similar like resume to, that had gotten in the early decision rounds. So I was like pretty hard on myself, but just like having to trust the process and know that like it'll work out was an important thing to go through for me, I think, my senior year.
I think a lot of my athletes and just students in general can relate to that right now because they're going through the college application process. And like, this is not a flex, but I never got deferred, mainly just because I didn't apply to hard enough colleges to get deferred to. So, can you explain like how that worked for you?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, because I was very sort of sheltered, I think, because I'm from a really small town in Maine. To give the Mainers or non-Mainers context, it's like 2.5 hours north of Portland, so I'm up there, and I just didn't have a good idea. Like I never really understood like boarding schools in the US. Like my high school was had boarding students, but they were all international, so I never realized that like people like US high school students like had the opportunity to go to like boarding schools as a high schooler. So that sort of culture, like said elite high school culture, was different for me. So I guess I didn't realize like the competitiveness of application process as well. But anyway, um, so if something is ED, that means that if you get in, it's bound, so you have to go there. But the like thought behind it of why you should want to do it is it shows them, one, you really want to go to this school, two, like fewer people apply because it's binding, so you have like a better shot. um and what they do, because it's early, there's sort of three options, like no, defer, or yes. So defer just means it's not a no, it's just we didn't take you in this small, first pick, and we're going to put you back in the regular pool for them to take another look at you during the regular admission cycle. So you find out again in March. So the early decision comes back in December, and then the regular one in March. So it feels like a no, but it's not really. It's basically just like, we know you're interested, we're going to give you another look. And yeah.
Gotcha. So not a no, but more like a not yet.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you got to Bowdoin, was there any plans of playing a sport in college, or was it just a spur of the moment decision?
Yeah. So I was supposed to swim. I did swim. Um, and growing up, I'd always been known as a swimmer, I guess. I swam for 12 years, and had, a fair amount of success. And I wasn't like recruited per se to swim, but I had talked with the Bowdoin swim coach, and I was going to walk on, and I had like a spot on the team, and it was kind of all set. But I was just feeling like pretty burnout with swimming. I wasn't having fun anymore. It was really just me at my hometown training. So it's just a lot of solo training, and I was sort of just done. And it's a pretty grueling sport. And I feel like to not love it and not have that drive, it's just really hard to keep going to the pool every day. So that was already on my mind. But secretly, I didn't tell anyone. I always knew I was gonna like try to join the rugby team at Bowdoin since I knew I was going. So the backstory for this is, um, in middle school, my math teacher, who helped me with some personal training on the side and ended up being my high school math teacher too, played rugby in college. So he would talk to me a lot about rugby, and I always wanted to like hear the stories. And he'd like talk about some injuries he saw in the field. I'd be like, oh my god, like what is this? This sounds like so intense. And then I'm also like a huge sports fan in general. So I was watching the Olympics, and I watch like every sport in the Olympics. So I was watching in 2016, and I saw rugby on TV, and I was like, oh wow, like this is really cool. I think I'd actually be good at this. Because I was always a pretty like physical soccer player. I also played softball. And so I thought some of those skills could be like transferable. And I knew that Bowdoin had a team that you had the ability to walk onto. So I was just super excited about kind of having a fresh start, checking out a sport. And so when I got there, the first day of classes, what we do is like have anyone who's interested, they put up flyers and stuff, come, and you can like watch practice, and like we all sit in a circle and talk about the team. And just from what everyone was talking about, like how body positive rugby is, and just the sort of culture that our team was, I was like, this sounds like too good to be true. How could I not join? So I ended up joining and just sort of like never looked back. Unfortunately, I did have a concussion at the end of my first year, so that sort of like set me out of swim season anyway, and sort of through rehabbing back from that, and then realizing that like I just wanted to spend all my time with the rugby team, and that was sort of where I felt the most at home in myself. I decided to quit swimming and just focus on rugby. So yeah, that's sort of my rugby story.
That's awesome, man. And you went in right to it was varsity. Bowdoin's been varsity for years. So was it intimidating trying to enter a varsity squad? And Bowdoin's good, people. So like it's no small task.
Yeah, I think it was just a big mental shift, because like I said, I'd been coming from playing three sports for 12 years, so I was used to being like really good, or having to the growth that I was having was very incremental, sort of like fine tuning stuff. So starting from the bottom, it was also freeing at the same time. I didn't have any pressure. So that was a big relief. I could just sort of go into practice and have fun and work on stuff, but I didn't feel like there was like there was no expectation for me at the beginning, just go in and see what happens. I started to like put those on myself as I saw openings and chances for me on the field. I mean, I always wanted to make it out on the field, but I just had that mindset in the first season where I didn't care if I ever really was getting A side time. I knew it was going to happen. I just really wanted to be the best player that I could be and work as hard as I could to get to that. And so luckily, I did get some opportunities that first year. And sort of my sophomore year, even more got kind of thrust into starting 12 due to some injuries and some other stuff that happened on the team that really made me learn fast. And looking back, I'm like, oh, there's a lot I could have done better. But that season was just huge for me in terms of growth. And I think you learn the most just through situations on the field and through mistakes. But yeah, just starting a sport from scratch when you're used to playing sports at a high level requires just a total different mental work and energy in terms of how you look at practice, how you look at like criticism with yourself after games and things like that.
How was the team environment and atmosphere under Mary Beth? Because I love Mary Beth and I was able to get some of her coaching through like the polar bear camps. So I want to know what it was like as an actual player.
Yeah, MB has been a coach for super long time. So she's done a lot in terms of like providing opportunities for people like me who didn't have rugby, as a high schooler, to still come and walk on while also having recruits. So I think it's a really great and interesting team dynamic that we're able to all kind of grow at different levels. But she works with people teaching tackle and contact technique before they're ready to take the field, but also trying to develop people who have like, USA rugby national team aspirations at the same time. So I think our team culture is really great. That was the first thing, like I talked about, that kind of drew me in. I think that it's always attracted great people. My best friends are all rugby people of every year. And I think something that was great about our team is it took me like forever to learn what class year like people were, because everyone was so like intermixed and friends. I like couldn't figure out who the seniors were and who the juniors were, and like because everyone was friends and stuff like that. So I think that was a big positive. When I first got on, the upperclassmen were so great and like welcoming to the new players. So we tried to, once I got to be a senior, we tried to do the same thing and sort of keep that going. So I think it's just a long-standing like culture that, when you're an underclassman, you see and you kind of work to, and it just kind of keeps that cycle going to consistent positive culture.
Did you guys ever go on tour?
We did. Yeah, that's a good point too, to back to kind of what MB cares about. So every 4 years, she makes a point to go on tour. I think it happened on the 5th year for us due to COVID. So, but we still got to go. We went to France and Spain, which was just so awesome to see rugby, where it's more of a forefront in the culture, and we saw like little kids playing. At 8 or 9 years old on the field. And I was like, wow, I wish I could have been doing this at that age. But it was so cool to be able to, one, just go to those places because I had never been abroad before. So kind of rugby giving me the opportunity, but also to play against Spanish teams and stuff like that. So
How many games did you end up playing? Like, were you over there 10 days? Probably two or three games, maybe?
yeah. We were over there for 10 days and played 2 games. One, we only got to play like 10v10 because of some COVID stuff that was going on. But the first game we played was against a team from Sitges, which is just outside of Barcelona, was one of the most fun rugby games I've ever been a part of. They were a really high level team. Just the way that they knew each other's anticipation. Coming running lines, they would just come onto it so fast. Like we lost, but it was a really hard fought, like clean game in the sense of the technique was great, the pace was awesome. It really forced us to up our level. I just had so much fun, like playing under the lights and seeing like the mountains in the background. It was so cool.
That's really cool. You had another game? Did you win or lose the second game?
We won the second game, and then we played like maybe like 3 20s or something like that. So after the first 2 20s, we like switched up the team. So basically we played with like a mixed team. So we got to know them. And
Oh, that's
then like
cool.
half of us went over. So it was really good in terms of like getting to know and talking with the other team. And then we had like a social after. So that was a lot of fun.
Were they both college teams or like I guess the equivalent of a college team?
I would say the second one was probably more of a college team. I think they even had some high school kids. They were definitely younger. The first one was like, I would say more like Beantown, where it was like any age. It was very open.
Yeah, when I went to Ireland, we played two games. The first one was against Trinity College, and then the which we won, and then the second one was against like an adult women's team, and we got smacked. And like we were like going against these like grown ass people, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm getting squished." But it's still a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely got hit really hard that first game. Like, okay, yep, this is what it's like. But I think just seeing how you could tell how long they'd been playing, like I was talking about those running lines and stuff. It was definitely a good glimpse of like what I wanted to work to.
So fast forward a little bit, you're kind of you're about to graduate college. Was it a decision that you were going wanted, excuse me, a decision that you wanted to play for Beantown, or did you kind of have to think about it and then maybe like do Can-Ams and then be like, okay, now I'm sold?
No, um, I love rugby so much. Anyone who knows me, like I talk about it all the time. It's just sort of like my thing. So it probably played too much of a role into like what I wanted for my next move, but I definitely wanted high level rugby to be around wherever I was, and that's why I had like Boston circled. It's definitely a dream to like have it work out for my life to be able to um come here and do this, but kind of starting in that game actually on tour. So I felt like I had played a good game at 10. So in school, actually my first 3 years, I was predominantly at 12. So then I shifted due to some injuries and stuff on the team my senior fall. I played a few games at 10 and I really enjoyed it. And MB was like, you're doing a good job at 10, but this person's back. We're gonna move you back 12. I'm like, okay, yeah. And I love 12 too. Um, but then on tour, I was 10 and I just felt like I'd played a really good game against Sicha's team. And I just felt like I had so much more to develop and give because I missed like a year and a half of rugby, one due to COVID, to my concussion first year. I hadn't played sevens until my senior spring of college. Because I was out first year, COVID hit sophomore spring. We didn't have a real senior or junior season at all. And so I just was like, wow, I actually feel like I've been playing rugby longer than I've actually been out there with opportunities. So I think that's what really made me want to pursue rugby at this level or after school, because I just felt like I still was on my sort of incline of growth and I just want to see where I could get to. So that's sort of been pushing and driving me because I just feel like I have more to give and more to get to. So I want to see where that goes.
Well, I mean, it's working out for you. You're a Beantown captain now, which is pretty cool. And so, Jenna, so since you haven't really played a whole lot of sevens, are you more of a 15s fan?
I mean, that's where I feel like I have more knowledge, but I did have a ton of fun. I love playing sevens. I think I just want to play more. I think I'm a transition sort of like player in terms of I'm a forward in sevens because I'm a little bigger.
Mhm.
Um, but I can also be a back. So I think I would just like to kind of fine tune that technique and understanding of my role in sevens to figure out how I can contribute the most on the field. But I have a ton of fun and I think it's just a totally different game. I love 15s in terms of like the strategy. And I think as a 10, most 10s I know would probably say that because I love like play calling. I love thinking about like the next move and sort of being more, I don't have the word on the top of my head, but very thoughtful about or like a chess, you're always
Like
thinking kind of two or three moves
calculating.
ahead. Exactly. Yeah. In sevens, that kind of goes out the window. I feel like you're just like everything's moving so fast and you have to just really go with what's right in front of you, which I mean you do in rugby, in 15s to some extent. But I think the methodical nature of 15s is not the case in sevens at all. But it's fun, I have a good time.
Absolutely. Sevens is so much more because there's so much more space, it's so much more free flowing versus 15s. It's like you kind of know what's going to happen. And then there's the occasional like breakthrough line where you're just like, ooh, this is exciting. Like, what do we do now?
Yeah, exactly. And just I need to get better in the ruck. That's one thing. Um beyond my case. That's kind of what I want to focus on. I think it got better in the fall, but I definitely want to keep working on that for sure. And there's some other points at the breakdown. I feel like as a back, sometimes we're just like, rucks, no, forwards come in. But sevens, yeah, especially if the person does, gets tackled, you gotta have support or not good.
As someone, I mean, myself, who used to be a forward and now I'm kind of transitioning to the back line, it's just like anytime I see a chance for contact, I'm like, let's go. Like, I'm gonna ram through this person and I'm just gonna try to cover as much ground as I can. Jenna, for as much as we love rugby and as much as you love rugby, has there ever been a time where maybe you didn't love it as much, or if it kind of took a toll on you mentally, physically, anything?
For sure. I think that one injuries, right? Um, I've had two concussions, and I think that coming back from them is hard and sometimes can be scary when you're thinking about like your head and health in that way. And then the questions of like we're putting so much time and effort into it, and then there's sometimes the question of is this worth it? Like where am I going with this? Like it is it really worth all this time putting in? I always answer yes, but sometimes like on the training days, and when we're driving, or you're driving way more to practice and stuff, like kind of reflect like okay, like is this really worth all the time? But then after practice, I'm always in like such a better mood and I love like the community it brings. So it's never usually like that long um of a question, but certainly I've had those moments and we had, some tough things like at school, on the team and just going through like personally stuff like um I would have those thoughts, but then I can't really imagine my life without rugby at the same time. So it's never been too serious to ever make me seriously want to stop playing.
What was the biggest like learning curve or transition realization when you went from college to Beantown?
I think the physicality in terms of just like pace of it, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. But at school, I was used to sort of being like I could sort of handle my own, and I still can. I had to grow that confidence. I think that a lot of it's confidence. Um, I grew my confidence a lot on the field in the 4 year. So leaving senior year, I felt really good about going about my contact ability, my tackle ability. I was never really ever I never had to question that. that was sort of what I prided my game on at school. And I wanted to work on sort of my passing, my reading things, sort of the next level stuff in terms of game management and all that was my like work-ons at the end. So I think kind of having it flipped for me at Beantown took a shot at my confidence for sure. I know you and I talked about this, but after like the Providence game, I was just like, oh my God, that was so bad.
Yeah.
I just got rocked. And I think when I say I don't even mean my body, just like my head and my confidence in myself, because I used to, like I said, pride myself on being a great tackler in terms of percentages. So when that was sort of failing me, I felt like my game was then so not solid. But I also had to think about in that game, I had like a really good offensive game in terms of like decision making, like kicking and stuff. So I was like, I'm not used to this being like the most consistent. So I'm trying to not be so hard on myself and just being like, okay, you did these things well, you got to work on this stuff. And then I think the Albany game was a big rebound for me in terms of like being one prepared for that physicality, trusting myself and my skills. And I think that going into this season, it's going to be, an even higher level. So I've definitely done a lot of work, just like mental work to get ready for it too. Because I mean, I think, that's a huge part of it as well.
Yeah, I think especially when anyone, but especially new players, it's just like the confidence piece. The more you get exposed to different styles in a faster paced game, the better you're going to be. Because it was the shift from college to women's league for me was the same thing. It was like one, they're adult bodies versus like baby adult bodies. And so it's just like there's bigger people, the hits are harder, but also like it's just faster. And so you just have to think faster. So at first it can be a little overwhelming, but the more you expose yourself and put yourself in those situations, just the easier it comes and the faster your play gets.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I agree. And I think I had to have those moments to be like, oh, this is your first like season. It's, you can't expect to immediately, flip the switch and have that because it is a really different level for sure. Just you're playing with people who have played a lot longer too and know the game. And like I was talking about playing abroad, the anticipation, which turns into speed. So to get used to that, and I'm just excited for the spring. I think that having these opportunities to play these higher level teams is gonna make us better. So I don't really have like a ton of expectations or goals for myself this spring. It's more of like I just gonna like work as hard as I can and try to grow as much as I can, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that was kind of going to bring me to my next question, which is like, what are the future plans for Jenna in playing rugby?
It's a tough one. Like I just gonna see where it goes. I'm gonna try not to put like too much pressure on myself. You know, I think I have a lot of ceiling. I would love to sort of take it and get to a high level, but if it doesn't happen, I'm also not going to be crushed. Like I just enjoy having rugby in my life and the people that it brings me. So we'll see, but I'm just going to keep working hard and doing my best, and if I make a team, that would be great.
Who knows? Maybe J Squared is going to bring Beantown their next championship.
Hey, I mean, whether I play a lot or not, I think that we have an amazing team who is gonna get the ship this year, and just to be able to practice and play with these sort of players is a dream for me. So um I guess you asked for sort of a long term, I for sure want to get a lot of WPL minutes like in my career, but right now for this year I sort of set that goal last year. It's going, we're doing well according to that. I'm sort of like jumping the gun now that I'm like, okay, I've done this. But back in May when I'm like, okay, I'm gonna join Beantown, like I just want to get like 1 minute of WPL. Like that was my goal. leaving Bowdoin. So I think I'm on track. And if I get that, like I'll still be so happy. And that'll be a big moment for me this spring if I, get any WPL minutes at all. Cause I set that goal and I was like, how cool that would that be if I can do that? Like coming as a walk-on, not having a full 4 years of rugby at school and trying to play at this level. So that'll be cool if that happens this spring.
Jenna, I bet it happens. Finishing up here, I want to end with two things. Number one, what is like the funniest or like most memorable rugby moment that you have experienced?
Funniest?
Yeah.
Oh God. Like on the field?
On the field,
Off
off the field, whatever. I should have gave you time to think
Yeah,
before I
no,
just
it's
sprung
okay.
this
I'm
on
just
with
thinking
you.
of so much. Also, I'm like super weird. Anyone who knows me well knows that I'm so awkward. Like just so awkward. So I'm thinking of a lot of moments because my best friends from school all played. So we had a lot of fun. Like we'd be like laughing at practice till like almost crying like so many times. But I think one of them was one of my good friends at Polar Bear Rugby Camp, like wasn't wearing like her usual Under Armour and we were playing like a scrimmage and got like fully pantsed in front of like
Oh
families.
no.
And I was watching it from the back and I'm just like, oh my God. And when I made fun of it, we just laughed about that forever. It's like those poor like little children. Scarred.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I've seen like at least I think twice people's underwear getting ripped out like because they get grabbed onto by the waistband and their underwear just rips right
Mhm.
off.
Yeah. They were trying to tackle her just like
All right.
what is yours?
uh I honestly like I really remember her name is Voodoo, so if she listens to this podcast, like she'll know.
Oh, I know
But
voodoo.
yeah, so like she was running down and she got grabbed and her underwear just straight ripped off. It also happened to one of my friends, Cass. And so like those two things, I was just like, what's happening? The
Well,
last
thanks. Oh,
what?
sorry.
No, 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 you go, you go.
No, say it.
No, you go. This
I
is
was just gonna thank
your
you for having me
podcast.
on. So if you had something else,
Oh,
happy to answer.
yeah, I did. Last thing. It is what would you tell probably 18-year-old Jenna who is going to Bowdoin and trying out for the rugby team?
Ooh, I just say your life's gonna change, but in a big way, and just keep doing things that feel the most you. I think I know we don't have that much time, but kind of an important side piece of all of this of like how important rugby was for me, which I find like now looking back like very reflective is like I going to school, like I wasn't out to myself, like fully out. Looking back, I probably knew, but I wasn't at any point in that time like close to like broaching that subject. And then just being part of the team, listening to people talk openly about liking girls was just so big for me to be no pressure. Like no one was ever saying stuff to me, just sort of such an inclusive environment. Um, and then one time, I always make fun of my friend for this. We were at a party and she was pretty drunk. And she came up to me and she's like, Jenna, are you straight? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just like trying to figure it out. And she's like, well, we love you. We support you. Like, we're here for you. And I was like, thanks so much. Like, that's nice. Like, I know that though. Like, and I appreciate it. And the next day she like felt so bad. She's like, I'm so sorry I did that to you. Like, I'm like, no, like I appreciated it. And it means a lot. So then I kind of was able to have those conversations with friends and figure that out. And I don't think I would have gotten there without the rugby team. Like I don't want to know myself without being on the rugby team or sort of what pain I would have had to continue to go through at school if I didn't have that outlet. And so I think it's fascinating to me to go back to that self, and I'm proud of that self for making the decisions that were right in most me to get me to this point. But it's like I was drawn to rugby as a queer person, and I had no idea that it was like a queer sport, if that makes sense. I was just like, something about it, I was like being pushed there, and I'm just so glad I like listened to that voice that got me there. So I would tell myself to just keep listening to that voice and to keep doing things that like make you feel the most you, and don't do stuff because you feel like you have to, or you have some pressure of doing them because you're good at it or that's what you should be doing. Just do the stuff that you find the most enjoyment with and that makes you feel like the most you.
Well, dude, that is awesome. And thank you so much for sharing your rugby journey and everything in between. This has been a fun episode for me to conduct, I guess the right word is. So, we'll kind of end it here. I want to thank you all for listening. Make sure you do the whole subscribe, leave a 5-star rating review, and definitely share this with a friend because I am sure there is someone out there who could benefit from listening. So, without further ado, thank you, and I will talk to you guys in the next